I have a big discussion for us today, and it's about the levels of consciousness and the map of consciousness and how this might apply to our sexuality. Now, I'm not trained in this. I first became aware of the map of consciousness back in 2014 when I went through my, abuse, and I kind of gotten an understanding of where I was on what level I had fallen to after that experience. And I didn't sit around to brain it too much or to think about it too much. And I'm saying this because I have a lot of guys here who I know that you are very technical and you look at things and you study them and analyze them and so on. I went from my feminine intuition and my feminine understanding of the map of consciousness and my work. It's not a structured discussion that I have for you today. It's an intuitive one. I hope that you can hold space for this, and I hope that you can find the nuggets of information, hopefully also wisdom in them or in the discussion. And I invite you to take this as a perspective, a different perspective for what you're doing with your sexual expression, with your sexual life, where you're heading to, and how you handle any trouble or stressful situations or unpleasant situations that you might come across, okay? You or your partner as well, or to an extent, other people around you. This is what some of you guys in the comments, I think it was something with philosophy. I forgot your account name. Philosophy Junkie or something like that. You were saying that you wanted to see how some people intertwined the spiritual stuff and then the grounded, rooted stuff, or the I forgot what your expressions were, but you said that you didn't find this mix and match or an ideal middle path between these two. Well, hopefully this one is, even to a small degree. So with no further ado, we're going to get to the map of consciousness and we're going to talk about it over there. What I do want to say is that you're going to find this map in the book called Power versus Force by David R. Hawkins. You may have read it, you may know it already. For those of you that don't know this, then, or you can just look up Map of Consciousness online. What you're going to see here is a very abbreviated version. It's much wider, it has more fields there. I just looked at the level of consciousness and the emotion, because emotion is the biggest aphrodisiac. And we want to look at our aphrodisiac, what happens to it on all levels of consciousness, and how we grow or maintain or move on from wherever we are. So that's it. Now we're going to go to the map. So looking at the chart right now, these are the levels of force. That's why you see here force. And these are considered negative, destructive, lower places, lower states of consciousness. And the levels, okay, this is the name of the level and the emotions that are associated with it. A lot of people in their sexuality can be turned on by negative emotions. For instance, humiliation in a lot of kinky communities is a big turn on. Okay, there are people who want to be humiliated. There are people who are turned on by being blamed. These are power play, role plays and power dynamics. There are sometimes, this is not necessarily in the kinky community, sometimes we get turned on when we're a little bit anxious. Now the trick with all of these, some people by anger and hate also, it's a big turn on for many people. And many people see this as very powerful and sexual and strong. Well, it is forceful. It's not powerful, though, according to this system of looking at our consciousness. The idea with anxiety, for instance, as with all the negative or the forceful emotions in our spectrum, is that they work as a turn-on when their charge is not higher or stronger than the excitement or the arousal charge. So if you're extremely anxious and you're not very turned on, it's not going to go anywhere from there. If you feel humiliated, but you're not turned on at all, or just a little bit, and this one is really high for you, then it's gonna short circuit your entire sexual, ignition, basically. So this is the only way, and with anger, the level of anger and hate, I used to have somebody, I worked with somebody who would get turned on a lot by anger. I wasn't that turned on by it, but I know that in events that we facilitated, he showed a lot of, facilitated for sexuality, he showed a lot of anger. And yeah, the emotion that is associated under the level of consciousness is hate. It's not very powerful. It is forceful, that is true, but it doesn't really take you, you're consuming from all of these, and it's easy to go downwards on the levels. What also happens is that maybe you get turned on, okay? So maybe you're feeling a bit angry, a bit hateful, and you're turned on. And you get sexual ignition. Awesome. With sexual interaction, there is the huge potential to transform, sublimate, grow our emotions. Now, this is happening only when both people in the interaction, or the more, depends on you, have agreed and they consent to the interaction. Because if somebody comes with anger and hate and they interact sexually with somebody who doesn't really want to have it, what is this? Abuse, rape. Now, another one that I want to look at is desire and craving, because it is forceful, it is much higher than, it's considered that from this level you only have, it's like death comes from here. The level of shame and the level of guilt, those are the lowest levels possible. And yes, usually people from here, they are considered just dead inside, if not even physically dead. It depends. I'm no doctor, so I can't really, this guy is though, okay? David R. Hawkins, he is, so he would know better. But in terms of interaction, existence, livelihood, everything, you're at this level, you are one step down to just being dead emotionally, energetically, in terms of doing stuff in life and so on. This is the worst thing that you can do to yourself or to somebody else. That is why in the BDSM community and in the kinky community, whenever this kind of interaction or role play is being done, there are safe containers to do this where it's just a play. It doesn't leave the people anxious, potentially traumatized, negatively charged, because otherwise, yeah, those people will go down. And any conscious BDSM practitioner or kink practitioner will know this. Big cue for you boys and girls out there to not do this on your own without proper training. Coming back to desire and craving. In the conscious communities, let's call them like that, desire from the Buddhist tradition has a very, it has a negative connotation. People who desire things, who want things, in terms of energy or in terms of attitude or internal position, internal place where they are, they feel that they do not have it. And that is why they crave it. Emotionally, this is the craving. A lot of people who are here can be perceived as needy. That is why sometimes when we show our desire for somebody, for a partner, somebody that is not necessarily into us too much, they can be turned off by seeing our expression too much, too charged, like too much craving, too much desire in you can be a turnoff for people who are, not as charged with craving and desire, okay? If somebody's on a higher level here and they see you here, they're gonna be negatively, they're just gonna stay away. There is a healthier way to embody desire. Ideally, you wanna take it to love. You wanna take it to willingness. You wanna take it to courage. Though it's not, the highest level out there, it is this is a power level. And courage doesn't mean that you don't feel fear, okay? You do feel fear, but you have the courage to keep going, to affirm yourself. That is the emotion. This is a positive one, and it's not overwhelming, it is not draining, exhausting, it is not too much. It's just affirmation, okay? You have your identity, they have their identity. You can affirm yourself, you have the courage to affirm yourself, but if it's not responded or reciprocated in any way, it's okay. This is the place where you go, you know, when you affirm yourself, to trust, to optimism. You can go higher from these levels. It's much easier to stay on this level and keep growing, maybe sometimes go down, but not in the forceful consciousness levels, because it's higher to make this jump, or heavier, from here to here. So with desire, the positive way, if you ever spot yourself, because there is no judgment, by the way, we're all on different levels of consciousness. I might be, where am I? I am in grief, and I feel a lot of regret for many things with respects to my previous work. For 2 years, I've been in grief. I'm not judging myself. I'm taking myself where I am. This map of consciousness relates to all areas of life. And for instance, whenever we part ways from a lover, yes, we're in grief. And we need to grieve, by the way. Each of these levels, sometimes we're there, and it's no shame. Okay? It takes a lot of effort and consumption of life energy to hop back to the power levels. But once we get there, even if it's just this one, the first one, it's easier to climb up the ladder. And sometimes everything that we manifest in our lives can help us go higher, much easier. Some people might be in anger. You know, they might hate their partners, former partners, current partners, for making them feel jealous, for making them feel that they could lose them, or for just something that happens in the interaction, in the relationship. That is human, okay? It is human to get to the anger level sometimes and feel hate. The best thing that I can say, if we ever find ourselves, I'm gonna come back to our sexuality, you know, if we ever find ourselves in any of these levels, these two levels, they need help. You can seek help from a therapist, from a counselor, usually therapy. These need therapy. And if your partner's in any of these levels with their sexuality, even apathy, I can also talk about this one when it comes to women. But if you feel that your partner is shamed, carries a lot of shame about their sexuality, or carries a lot of guilt for something that they may have done in the past sexually, that is still gonna drain them. And yes, they need help. Unless you're a therapist, but even if you are a therapist and you are in a relationship with somebody that you find, maybe you didn't spot them, you find that they carry this kind of imprint, emotional imprint in their sexuality, you already know that because you're in a relationship with them, intimate, you can't be their therapist either. You already know this. For those of us that don't know yet, then, okay, we can't do therapy on our lovers. We can only love them, accept them as they are, support them as they are in their wherever they are, and encourage them to seek professional help. Now, let's look at the apathy for women. Sexually speaking, sometimes women, depends on what happens hormonally or emotionally, sometimes a lot of our sexual energy is very much dependent on where we are emotionally. So if we're not in a good place emotionally, we might not have the sexual craving, okay? And we might be in the apathy level. We don't want to have sex. We don't even want to touch our body. We don't even want to think about it. And a lot of the women that write to me are in this place sometimes. It doesn't mean that they're there their entire life. Unless maybe something else has gone wrong and their entire sexuality is cut off from them. And these are the women that are single, they never find somebody, they never express sexually, and you can feel on them they are really bitchy, or not even bitchy, they're just disoriented, in despair. How you get from here, how you get from any of these levels higher, is that you stay with the emotion. You stay with that emotion. Every emotion will eventually fade out. It will transform into something else. Emotion is the fleeting, the most fleeting one in everything that we do. More fleeting than thoughts, I guarantee. So emotion, it is fleeting and it will go away, but you have to really live it all the way. You have to allow it to be consumed in a way. Don't fight it. Don't ignore it, because if you don't pay attention to it, it's going to stick around. It doesn't fleet. Or flee, actually. It doesn't flee counterintuitively because it's not being paid attention. Yeah, sometimes these emotions go away too. If we stay with them, because they have a normal cycle within us. And the stuff that we need to know with emotion is that we should never cling to it. Because we get into, where do we get? Let me think about this for a bit. We're not in the power state. Whenever we try to force something, we're forcing. Where could we be? Maybe in craving. If we want to stick on to optimism. Maybe someday you don't feel optimist. Maybe you don't want to forgive. Heck, this level is super high. I struggle a lot with this. Let me tell you. You did something to me and I've felt pain, especially in emotion, in relationships, with guys. Good luck. Like, there are languages, the languages of saying sorry and the forgiveness languages. We, guys, please hear me out. You need to learn these. You need to learn how to ask for forgiveness. It doesn't just go away if you ignore it. So this one is super important. Maybe we can't forgive, okay? We gotta stay with our lack of forgiveness sometimes. Sometimes we're forgiveful, and after a day or two, we no longer feel that way. Okay, it did its thing, and now you're moving into other states, other emotions, basically. These are the consciousness levels. So if we try to hang on to them, we might end up in craving and desire. And that's not okay. You see a lot of people on their spiritual path, including on their sacred sexuality path, stuck a lot in desire, this level of consciousness, because they're craving for bliss, for serenity, for reverence, for optimism sometimes. They're craving. They have their mind set on one or the other, but emotionally they're in the craving emotion, basically. And they're in the desire level. So yeah, never sit with your emotions, no matter what they are. Don't judge them. If you see somebody around you who's a lot in the force consciousness levels, don't judge them. Man, if you can't be around them for years, if they need to be there for years. Because this leap, sometimes some people might never make this leap. Others might take a long time to make this leap. If you can't stay with the person, can't accept them, can't be with them, not every day, obviously. But if you can't, don't try to fix them. Guys, please don't do that to anybody around you. Ladies, don't try to encourage them to be something that they can't be. If you really can't stick around to them, find a way to let them know, but let them know that it's your lack of ability. Don't just shut them down, don't ghost them, don't just abandon them, because these aren't easy levels of consciousness. And let them know that you're here for them, but it's also really difficult for them, for you actually, to see them like that. And maybe they can get some help. You would love them to get help. You will be there for them when something changes, but maybe you've tried a lot, many years to help them, and you can't. In relationships, boy, I know it's tough. Let's say that one person is in the power levels and another one in the forceful levels. Usually the person that is here isn't aware of what is going on. You need a higher place from where you can see these levels, okay? They have a huge blind spot with this one. So if in their intimacy, okay, let's say somebody's with anger. They get turned on when they're angry. And they release a lot of tension through sex that way. And you're in the love, or in the joy level. And you're turned on by other emotions, yes. These emotions, usually you end up after an orgasm, you either feel bliss, that's the orgasm, or you feel serenity. That's a sign that your sexual encounter, no matter from which emotion it began, if it ends up in bliss, serenity, reverence, maybe forgiveness, this one was healing sex, by the way. You find yourself forgiving something, not necessarily your partner, just something in your life, after you've made amazing love with your partner, this was healing sex. Yeah, best definition. This one was growthful sex. Sex for evolution, you have understanding, you have reverence. This one is already high. Gratitude is also here. Reverence, gratitude. That's why it's associated with love. This one is a super high level. End up your sexual encounters on this level, so with this emotion, awesome. Just don't mentally cling to it because you're here. Remember this. You're in craving. You're not in reverence or serenity. Yeah, by the way, in the book called The Erotic Mind, Jack Morin was a therapist. He didn't have the map of consciousness with these levels like David R. Hawkins has them, but he did make a point to set up 3 levels of positive emotions and 3 levels of negative emotions. And he is the one that actually portrayed this or explained this in the best way possible. You can get turned on with the positive or the power levels in this case, or with the negative emotions, so the forceful levels. The important thing to seek here is that when you finish your sexual encounter, you're in the higher levels. Because if you end up here, you begin here and you end up here, or you begin here and you end up here, repeatedly, this is the surest way that you will end up in therapy one day. And depending on where you end up, it's also a sign of abuse. If any sexual encounter finishes with you feeling any of these, okay? Humiliation, blame, despair, regret, that is also a sign of something going wrong, something or someone crossing your boundaries. Maybe you crossed a boundary you did not know you had. These are, take them as messengers, these emotions, messengers to show you that something isn't necessarily okay, that there's something that you don't know about yourself. And this is an invitation to look at your boundaries in sexuality. This one, to this you get to when you're consenting to sex, when you're making sure that your boundaries are respected, when you're paying attention to your states in those moments. Yeah, and both people actually in the interaction, man and woman. And this is how you know you grow. And I'm going to invite you to go back to the video where I was talking about the energy exchange between the partners. Essentially, these are, if you end up just in the lower levels, you could say that you're in the lower energy centers and you just stay there. You don't grow. Nobody made a specific association between the level of consciousness and the energy centers. But let's just say that this one would be a constructive way of exchanging energy, and you know that you're growing in emotions, in your sexual intimacy. And this one is the destructive way of energy exchange. I've spoken about this in that video. I'll put a link under this one, and check that one out as well. So yeah, I hope this helps. I'm not necessarily trained in the power versus force. I'm speaking from intuition and from my understanding of sexuality, and from the fact that emotion is the biggest aphrodisiac, and emotion is the biggest messenger or your compass to know where you are sexually in your relationship or by yourself. And once again, one message here that I want to leave you with: if you find yourself in any of these levels, don't try to cling to any of them, and don't ignore them either. Be with them. They need to. And if you ignore serenity, I'm not sure, I don't know why you would want to ignore serenity. It's not necessarily, when you ignore something, okay, you're going down again. There's like an unwritten law in the universe. You ignore your bliss and you go for other things, okay, it's not going to stick around. The positive one, it's like the smart emotions, smart people, if you ignore them, they don't stick around, okay? This is how it is in life. So positive emotions or powerful emotions, you ignore them, well, sister, you're going down. These ones, they are the needy, craving ones. They're going to stick around whether you ignore them or shut them down. The only way to get rid of these is to pay attention. The only way to enjoy these and make sure that they come back whenever they need to, or you need to, is to stay with these also. I hope that makes sense. So yeah, that's it. Enjoy your week and let me know if this helped you in any way. I am super curious.